So that way, the studio was small, and you had everyone from stars, principal dancers at New York City Ballet and American Ballet Theater and Alvin Ailey and Martha Graham, and then you had somebody who had severe injuries, and then you had people who were with Joe from forever,
right?
And it was that mix of seeing you had already a clientele that were self-reliant and extremely affluent. That Milliken and Donna Vassa was of Vassar College money. I mean, a lot of people have a lot of money. But there was Joe made them all become students. You're a student. You're not so-and-so, you're a student. Romana told the story that he would even have, for the poor student, Joe would go, okay, don't worry about it, you don't have to pay me. And then he'd go to the wealthier client and he'd say,
charge him more.
He'd give me money, I need it. I need money, so give it to me. And they would. They're like, what do you want, Joe? I don't have rent money. Okay, here's rent. Here's this. These people found amazing qualities in the Pilates work and in their wealth. And he was a person who was well, this person needs it. As long as you were a good student and you could be poor, Joe's that's okay, you can stay. But if you showed you didn't have a brain and you were whiny and this and goodbye, I don't want anything to know from you. So Romana tried to, I think, carry that on with a certain amount of situation. She didn't have that outright, but there was a board of directors now, so they pretty much covered what she would say, I want to give so-and-so a scholarship, so they could pay less. And basically, I think myself, I'm not sure about other people, but I became a Pilates instructor because I was I have to. I can't pay for this, and I have to do it every day. So can I? And I'd already been doing it in college from '75 to 1980, and here it was '81, 5 years. It wasn't out of the blue, but still, the first time Romana said, "Okay, teach the mat," I was like, "What?" I mean, I know the mat back and forth, by the time I was, there. But now I had these older Pilates, clients.
Well, knew it.
That knew it and knew it from Joe. And then who am I, You had to pass their tests, I was like, oh my God, here I go. Some of the characters were, and they were funny and when you got to know them, but otherwise, they're do you have a cold? Go to the other side of the room. I don't want to get your germs. It's okay. Did you wash your hands? I was yeah, I washed my hands. I was and that was a funny writer, and he was just hysterical. And of course, once you got past that, it was amazing. But he had his routine. He didn't want to do his routine every day. This is the routine Joe gave me. And that's it. And they were happy to know that what their body needed, and this is what Joe gave them, or this is what Clara gave them. And it was amazing to see some actors that came in from the West Coast, and maybe they hadn't been there since, I don't know, maybe Joe died. But when they came back in, there they were, doing their mat. There wasn't a thing you really had to tell them. You pretty much were standing behind them, and they were and I mean, it was they heard his voice or something in his head, pull up and lift yourself. And they did it with zeal and energy and never looking for that special treatment, I'm somebody, I gotta get up, can you drop my spring, or nothing like that.
They did that all themselves.
Oh yeah. It was the flow, and it's the flow that a lot of people try to teach the clientele, and it's great, and you guys all know it. Everybody here knows it. But, it certainly is nice when you're really in the flow. The teacher's right there. Let me just drop a spring. I don't need to do that teaser up thing to drop a spring to do a teaser. One extra little thing you don't have to do. But, and Romana used to do that. She would drop springs and pick springs up. She did. She didn't make the client do every single thing. Not like a military thing like that. And I think sometimes she loved the flow. I can't say I know what Joe or Clara felt, but from all the talk about them and the clients who saw us as teachers work out, because we worked out every day with them, after or with them sometimes, and they were oh, Joe would like that. Or Joe would like that. Oh, you did that well. Joe would say that was good. And they would tell you what Joe would say was good and what Joe would say was bad.
Wow, and that's got to be intimidating. You're
yeah, it was oh my God, this is what the Joe said. So that was interesting to come from that studio. Now the studios are so many, that way we take steps away from, I don't know. It was hard for me to take that step away from Romana, but I didn't intentionally do it. It happened. And
Before we go there, can we talk about equipment? What was in her studio? Do you remember?
there was no 80-inch reformers. There was 83-inch reformers.
83.
83. 83, not 80.
How do you know that?
Because we measured them.
Really?
Yeah. We measured them twice, very importantly. We took the measurements very accurately, at least once that I remember.
Why was that?
Because there was a certain person who was being, let's say, not treated well, and they had to, go back to Canada.
Oh, right.
Well, we didn't want her to go totally empty-handed. Maybe some figures could help her
Right.
do things. So that's why I know for sure there was no 80.
Do you want to talk about that?
What the 80
That
is?
person?
Oh, Moira Stott?
Yeah.
Moira, it was a wonderful person. I loved her.
Well, start from the beginning. When did she come?
She must have come in 1982. She was a Canadian, and she had and she was dancing for the National Ballet of Canada. And she had foot injuries, consistent foot injuries, to the point where it was just not going to be that she could continue as a ballet dancer. And Canada had this program where they did a situation with, I forget the word for it now, but it's not an intervention, but assistance, transitional assistance into another career. So the transitional, so she was able to decide, I guess somehow she knew about Pilates and decided that she wanted to do that as a career. And she wanted to be sure that she could be able to come back to Canada and teach that as a certified Pilates instructor from New York, from the studio where Romana was. So she came. So she came and I think it was like a weird, I don't know, transitional time. Pilates went through 2 owners in
There was like the
80s.
board of directors.
Yeah, the board of directors, and then there was Aris Isotona, and then Wee Tai Om. And she came in earlier than that. But anyway, so she did it. And her thing was that she trained and she lived in New York, which was, she was already a married woman and her husband was an actor. And so she took the sacrifice to come to New York for a total of 2 years. And she did. And then the last minute then she was going to leave, the owner of Pilates decided, it was just around that time we were getting the inkling that he was like going to start a certification thing and a franchise thing. And I was teasing him all the time. But you know me, I tease him all the time. I was like, what are you going to franchise? Look at this. You want the studio to look like this? Colors? I said, orange and turquoise. It's like Howard Johnson's. Hojo's Pilates. What's going on here? This is a franchise. Anyway, he was going to charge like $199,000 for a franchise, but we're talking 1986. And many of our clients were very wealthy and business women and men, and they said, a Haagen-Dazs franchise is not that much, and they have protection of all the things that you would need for a franchise.
Right.
So she pretty much got, that word. So it stopped her in her tracks because she had no idea that that's what was going to happen, that she thought she'd have a certification that she could go and teach, not to have to be forced into buying a franchise.
Oh, so in the midst of her training, was she finished at that point? Or?
Yeah, she was teaching. She had to teach for a year after her certification, so she did.
Wow, what a nasty surprise.
Hello, thank you very much. That's why I said.
Yeah.
So that's why.
Like, and by the way, we're going to slap this on you.
So nothing a few tape measures and pictures can't take just to help her. So therefore, she wouldn't be allowed to buy equipment or anything if she didn't fulfill these things. So she was stuck she had no choice but to do what she did.
So you guys helped her, you helped her measure some equipment.
Yeah, just so I know, we had no 80-inch reformers in the studio.
Exactly.
Not a one.
And then, and how do you feel about what Moira started in terms of her company now?
Well, the thing is that I don't really understand a lot of them, I think when you're ostracized already from some place you put your heart and soul and belief into, and they throw you out the door, and you're in another country.
You find your own way.
Yeah, and you're going to find your own way. I think her husband was extremely helpful to her because Lindsay, loved her and appreciated that she loved the work. Now, for me, there are many people that are doing many Pilates techniques now. So I don't know if I could ask Moira why you changed so much of the technique or equipment, but I wouldn't know what to say. But then again, I don't understand half the people that go around changing the technique. And some of them that are students that I've come upon, then they work with me and then they're like, well, I never learned this. And I'm like, I know. This was Romana's biggest fear. She held on to that litigation because she felt if it became generic, this is what would happen. There would be a watering down or such a changing of what was taught out there, that what comes first. I mean, is it PT or is it Pilates? Now there are PT people that do Pilates, but they don't even know Pilates.
Yeah.
But because they're PT, they think they know everything. I'm not saying they don't. I'm not saying they don't know the muscles and this, but they decide which exercise is good for this. And personally, as a Pilates instructor of many years, I don't have the education of a physical therapist or a chiropractor or this, but the fact of the matter is their degree does not let them understand what Pilates really is unless they really do it. And that's like saying you know how to teach a Graham technique because you're a PT. I don't think that's going to happen. You know how to teach ballet because you're a PT or a chiropractor. You sorry?
Right.
Just because you know the body doesn't mean you're going to know how to teach ballet.
Yeah.
So it's like that. I love them, but it's like, and then there are wonderful PT that know this stuff and try to use it, and they're going to use it in their setting. Whether it's hospital special surgery in New York, they've incorporated Pilates into their rehabbing after things, but they're also afraid of the whole work that they dissect it to a point where it is what insurance allows. And in this country, insurance allows, you have a shoulder injury, I'm giving you all the exercises for your shoulder. You have a knee injury, and that's what happens to it. And then they don't realize that it's still your whole body that reacts, and that's to your injury, to your life, to your daily life. And that is what Joe Pilates knew. Your body is not one piece. You could be missing that piece. Doesn't mean you're going to be depressed and sad and unhappy for the rest of your life. And we've proved that. I mean, he's not alive now, but he would look at, the Boston Marathon and the people that suffered. And one of the teachers that Brooke taught, I'll remember her name in a second. Anyway, she did a pro bono. She worked with all of the people who had lost their legs, right?
I heard of that.
And they went back to running on their, on their prosthesis, and she brought him back. And she took not a cent from it. It was the most Pilates-like thing you ever heard in the world. And that's it, Julie Erickson.
Yeah.
Julie Erickson. So that is like the spirit of the work that we do, is that there are times when you just reach out for a person because you're like, nobody else did. And that's what Joe did. Nobody else was going to care about somebody else. Or for Eve Gentry, it was like double mastectomy. But what? It was in the 50s. What did they care about? So your breasts are gone. Too bad. Okay. Well, that didn't mean anything. You're not attached to those things in any way, are you? You don't care. Like, just throw them out. You don't have to wear a bra anymore. That's great. But it's attached, all the muscles, the lymph nodes, everything. And when Joe Pilates worked with her, it was amazing. And then the medical society said, well, it wasn't a controlled experiment, we can't really acknowledge it as, valuable work. So those are things that you're up against. But the thing is, I've met too many PTs that have become Pilates instructors, straight-on Pilates instructors, not PT in their office. I've met massage therapists that have become Pilates instructors. I've met, market managers, money market managers that have become Pilates instructors. They were clients, and then they were Pilates, and they said, this is crazy. This is so healing, and I'm going to do it. And if I made a shitload of money and in the financial world that I was in for how many years, fine. I don't have to live the rest of my life that way. Now I have a kid, now I can do Pilates. And so, but still they were active in it for themselves before they decided to become Pilates professional. in Seattle, I had some people, I'm like, no, I don't want to train you. They used to call me Yoda. I said, I'm not living in a swamp. I'm not in hiding. You can come and take my class. But they didn't want to take class. They wanted me to certify them. I'm like, there you go. You don't want to be the student, but you want to be the teacher. You want one more thing, because in the sports world, you can go for a weekend and then ACE, whatever. You get certified in kettlebell. You get certified in cross-train fit. You get certified. It's like, hello, here you go. You think you can do Pilates in a weekend because you can do crunches and you can do curls and you can do squats. You don't know what Pilates is. Right. You know. So those are the things you come up against. And now there are too many people that are out in the world who have had so many things in the pot. It's like a potluck Pilates teacher. You get everything. You get everything. It's like chop suey. What's in here? Everything is in here. And then you feel compelled. I'm going to pull from this and pull from that. And then you're going to try to put it all together. Potluck Pilates. You know? So it's like, that would like really, really hurt Romana. I'm sure it hurts, you know, Cary and Daria, that'll be screaming, we are the only Pilates, we are the true Pilates. You know, it's like any of us that are going to go out there and we're the classical Pilates. And it's like, it's the hard thing to let go of something. Will I be able to say, but at least it's out there? No, it's like the word ice cream. It's generic now. Mm-hmm. But I know there are certain ice creams I've been through in my life. I would never buy them. Mm-hmm. You know, so then it's up to the person that has to go through all the different kinds of Pilates studios. Say, well, that's good and that's not so good, and this is good. It's the same thing with coffee. Oh, well, pizza's great and Starbucks is this and da-da-da. You know, it's like, I don't know what's going to happen in the long run, but all I can say is that, you know, it's up to clients. They don't want to keep on searching to find out what's, you know, real or what's good, and then there's real, and there's pure, and there's true, and there's, it's like, really? It's
fusion, and there's
like,
Pilates and Pilatesology and
really, I don't know, club Pilates. It's like, what kind of Pilates is this, you know? And it's just like, that's when you're like, well, I don't know what that means anymore. Authentic, this. I mean, these are all words that like came up after the litigation. And then before the litigation was over, everybody, and when I was living in Seattle, that's when it was on strong, 93 to 2002. Everybody went from like, it used to be Jane Erskine Pilates Fitness Center, right? And then she got cease and desist and she had to take down the sign, and it was just like, she had Erskine Fitness Pilates-based workout. Because she was being honest, it was Pilates-based, you know? But everybody had to start taking their signs down, and it was like balance within, core dynamics, core feelings, core lengthening, core strengthening, core. I was like, all right, well, we don't have a word for that anymore. And so then it was kind of lost in that way, because everybody was trying to not get sued, but you still were trying to work because that's what you did for a living. I don't think Sean realized how many people had been in the work of Joseph Pilates, or he cared, or he even knew. It wasn't just Romana. Eve Gentry had everything going on in Santa Fe, Ron Fletcher, right? Yeah. All these people had careers for decades and decades, and to have one man think he's going to come in and take it all out, well, class action pursued.
So for anyone out there who doesn't know the reference here, Cary's referring to the class action lawsuit that was brought against Sean Gallagher, who had been sending cease and desist letters to anyone calling themselves a Pilates teacher in the 90s.
1993 it all started.
93. And Ken Endelman at Balanced Body brought a class action suit, gathered a class action suit against Sean, and that developed into a long court case that you were deposed for, right?
Yeah, 7.5 hours.
Whew. That's a day.
Yeah, that was a day. That was a day. Well, as the class action suit lawyer said, boy, you really made Sean Gallagher's lawyers scream. Because the thing is that I'm from the original, not the original, that was Joe Pilates, but from Romana's studio. Therefore, but all the original stuff is in there. All of Joe's stuff was in that studio. Everything was in that studio. And it was just like, you can't try to do a cease and desist on me when I have all my taxes paid from the Pilates Inc. studio.
Yeah.
I've been Pilates Inc.
From your own.
Yeah, like from your own thing. All you have to do is go to my taxes. It's from Pilates Inc.
Right.
You know? And so those were the kind of ridiculousness. It's like, you cannot, you know, it's very hard. And his lawyer's like, you have that? I'm like, why wouldn't I have that? Why wouldn't I have my taxes? You know?
So did you have to bring those in and show them?
I had stuff. I said, there's a copy. Then I had something else. Then there was a thing where they thought it went straight from like the board and straight from Weetie to, and there was nothing in between. And this is where the in-between thing was. It was a client who owned, you know, Aris Fitness
gloves.
Yeah, Aris Turner gloves. And
then the inserts for your shoes.
He was an unbelievable client of the Pilates method. Loved it. Larry Stanton. He worked out every single day. And he was the president of this. Subsequently, our lease was up, and we were going to have to move to a different location, which Romana was searching out with one of our other teachers, Douglas. And none of the clients wanted to go from 56th Street to the 30s. Mm-mm. So he said, fine, I'll take it. I'll buy it. I'll keep it. And so he did. So
he just bought the studio right there?
Yeah.
Or the whole building or something?
No, he bought the studio.
Okay.
He bought Pilates.
Okay.
He bought the Pilates studio.
Right.
That's what he bought.
And so that meant you guys got to stay in that space?
Because he was able to pay for a higher rent that we were unable to.
Oh, I see.
He believed in the work so much, he was just going to pay for it.
Okay.
And so he wanted to show and build. Then once he owned it, then you had all the PR people coming up, and we're selling like Aris Isotoner tights and this, and we got special uniforms we had to get made, you know, unitards and everything, and little T-shirts that said Aris Isotoner Fitness Center and everything. Well, the class action suit lawyer really hated that because it was like proved that there was a change in the wording of the Pilates studio and a change of hands.
Right.
Since in patent law, that's apparently a big thing. I didn't know it, but it's a big thing. And everyone was denying it. And I'm like, why is Romana denying it? Why is Phoebe denying it? I'm like, I have my T-shirt. He goes, do you have it? I said, right here. He goes, why do you keep that? I said, because it's such a funny thing. I kept the T-shirt. I have the business card. He's like,
oh my God. He was like,
he was just like, he was dying. Another Diet Coke. He was like, and so the lawyer that's working for Ken Endelman was like, oh, you're killing him. He's dying. He's like, why do you have this? I'm like, what do you care? I said, it's my career here, and you're like trashing me.
Yeah.
And why do you care? Why does, you know, the person you're defending like not realize what he's doing? You know, he's not even embracing the people that have a Pilates Inc. seal on it. Like, he's denying me. So it was just a horrible time, and Romana stayed with him for a very long time.
Until the end of the lawsuit.
Until the end of the lawsuit. And then the end of the lawsuit, he lost. And they didn't need to use me because Kathy Grant and the other woman, what's her name, from Puerto Rico?
Lolita Sims.
Yeah. They have Joe Pilates' signature on a certification.
On a piece of paper.
Yeah. Romana don't have a diddly squat. And, you know. I mean, not to say that Romana doesn't deserve something. My God, she's passed on by now. But I felt Romana kept his work, like everything you see charted here, I would say we did. So people say, how do you know you're doing classical Pilates? I'm like, well, that's Joe Pilates, and I know that, I do that, I do that, I do that. That's it, that's all I got. You tell me I'm not classical, well then, I don't know what you are, you know? So that's how I know. But look, did machines change? You know, everyone's saying whatever they say about machines. Look at these clubbed little things. And look at those. Those are all arched. You know, there's different ones all the time. Those shoulder blocks.
Super old ones.
Yeah, but whatever. I'm getting super old too. That's it. I'm getting super old too. So that's the truth of it, is that the lawsuit being lost by Sean opened up the window for all of these other human beings who have the slightest interest in Pilates, and many of them who got certified. Some go because, oh, I can do it in a weekend, why not? Well, that sounds great, $116, 16 hours, that's great, I'll do that. So, or else they like Equinox and they're there at Equinox, and Equinox now has a teacher training, so I like it, so why not do it here? So it's like, if it's location, it's just like, it's a Starbucks mentality. It's like, well, you're right here. I'm gonna drink your coffee because you're right here. I mean, that was how he built his business. Just put it in your face, and eventually you just will drink it, or you drink tea like me. But this is what happens. So, for us who are studied Pilates in the classical way, and amongst us now within our own classical teachers, they have not a lot of certification as much as that they have syllabuses that they teach. So you have to be a certified teacher in order to take these courses with these very fine teachers. But the actual training of this teacher, the beginning training, it hardly exists anymore. The classical, except for like in New York at where Romana's daughter or Karen Shipley is. That is classical. Alicia has her own. Cynthia, sorry. Cynthia Shipley, and Alicia has her own certification.
Alicia and Garo.
Right. So I don't know. I'm sure it's pretty classical, but I guess you want to brand yourself so you make it something else. But many of the teachers that I come across with and I teach in a workshop, they're like, oh, well, that makes sense now. Because, I don't know, I didn't do it. It's not me. It was Joe Pilates. What passed on. And Romana used to say, there's that phone conversation, that telephone operator, thing. You tell somebody something, then you whisper into the next person here, and by the end of 100 people, you have a whole different message. So it's a hard thing to do. So I think it's great that some people are able to situate themselves so you can gather teachers from all over the world that are dedicated to this, and so they can at least see it and see it in action. And it's great if they can find a studio near them to do it. And my hope is that, eventually the bad things, I don't want to call them bad, but misguided things will just fade away. Because they're not really going to work.
They'll be fads.
Yeah. And there you go. And Pilates has been around through all of them. And I said through aerobics, I was saying to somebody. And then somebody said, and even Romana herself said, well, bad Pilates is better than no Pilates. And I'm like, oh my God. I was like, there are a lot of bad things I would give up to have the better thing, And I used to say, well, when I knew aerobics was really bad for you, especially high impact aerobics, and I'm like, I'm not gonna do that. I'm a dancer. I wouldn't kill myself for a stupid aerobic, excuse me. But, I'm sorry, marching out with a headband on is really not my thing. It wasn't my thing in 1980. I'm sorry, Jane Fonda, but it wasn't my thing. So, I knew as a dancer, that was like, we'll laugh. But many dancers had to become aerobics teachers. And Romana was quite upset not upset, I was upset in the studio. It's like, Romana, we're losing clients, supermodels and actors. And she's like, they're gonna come back. I said, but Romana, she says, that's not going to work. They'll get hurt, they'll be back. And sure enough, 6-7 months later, they were like, how many people started coming back? Because it was just like, there's really, even when you're in a general studio, there is one person that's scanning the room and they're checking all of you out. That's more than most aerobics teachers or personal trainers in Equinox. Excuse me, but I worked there. I saw what you guys did. You just stood with your hands behind your back and just were thinking of something else. Looked fabulous in your black, a trainer, and there you were. Superman. And you're not, what the hell you're thinking? You certainly don't see the person's knees, their back, this. I used to knock on the window and go, what are you doing? What are you doing there? And they were like, they did not care a lick what the hell the client was doing. I was like, you're getting $90 and you're just standing there like this, and the client's like, pushing a weight across the length of the gym. I'm like all turned in. I was like, oh my God, I can't look at this. So no matter how much I can say, here we are, those struggling times in Pilates, we still come to work and we concentrate on the person, the human being that's in front of us. And I can't say that is true for what I've seen in a lot of personal trainers that are working.